I don't know if they make you read it anymore in high school, but when I was a teenager we had to read John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. This classic novel about the Depression era showed an impoverished family named the Jodes, forced from their home in Oklahoma, traveling to California to pick fruit, only to be treated like illegal immigrants in their own country. The opening scene of John Ford's movie based on the book shows a sheriff, his deputies, and a representative from the bank on the farmland of this family. The bank has come to throw the family off the property and foreclose on their mortgage. To make sure they leave, the bank has brought along a bulldozer to level their house. It's one thing to be forced out, and it's another thing to see your home get destroyed in the process. That kind of cruelty would seem to be a thing of the past. But there's a scene in Michael Moore's new movie that rivals it. A family in Indiana is being forced out of their home of 20+ years by the bank, and they are so destitute they have no place to bring their belongings. The bank's notice states that they have to have the entire premises cleared, so if they can't move their stuff to another facility or a home, the bank will hire a contractor to bring it to the dump for them. Or to save money, the bank offers the family the chance to throw their own belongings away at the local dump for a check of $1,000. The family, desperate for money or without other options, takes the bank's cruel offer and dumps their belongings and burns the rest. It puts a lump in your throat and makes you understand why the father of the family, so angry, stops just short of wishing harm on the devils that run the bank. But the key difference between the Steinbeck-John Ford movie and the Michael Moore film is that Steinbeck wrote fiction based on the truth of the day, while Michael Moore is showing real people in a documentary. The Depression was extremely hard on people, but as I've often heard, people in the South and Midwest were used to being poor then, and they didn't notice much difference at first except for the Dust Bowl. But people in 2009 America are not used to being poor for the most part. In the last 75 years, the majority have become accustomed to a middle-class lifestyle. We do not do poverty well. But as more of our rights and protections get eroded away, and the top 1% of the country gets to eat more of the pie, we are learning that we are not too far away from being a poor nation once again. Michael Moore's films are always conversation starters, and for some reason, part of the population watches his movies and agrees with them, but feels powerless to do anything to put his thoughts into action. And another part of the population thinks he's the Antichrist, hates America, and wants to do anything to discredit this man. Michael Moore speaks for the everyman, the working man, the poor, but the irony is that his biggest supporters are often people of higher means with good educations, while the people he's fighting hardest for, the working class, turn against him. It's part of the mystery of America that many of us fight so hard to keep that 1% in riches and power, believing against all the facts that we can one day join that 1%. For many of us, the American dream has been squelched. The idea that we will do better than our parents is long gone, and now the idea of doing just as well as our parents seems pretty remote as well. It is much less likely for a person in America to rise out of his class than almost any other nation in this industrialized world. Michael Moore shows us how Wall Street came up with these high-concept ideas like derivatives, a computation that is so difficult to explain, even the best minds on Wall Street have a hard time doing it. The best minds in America used to go into science and medicine, people like Jonas Salk. But now they go to Wall Street and come up with these ideas that are so hard to figure out. Federal regulators are not even sure if they are legal. When a lawyer comes to decipher their meaning, he's often lost, and if he does figure it out, well, Wall Street will offer him a job. The system didn't always work like this. After the Depression and World War II, men came back to America and started unions, enjoyed better wages, health care, rock-solid pensions, and steady employment. While the rest of the world was rebuilding after the war and trying to get their industries off the ground, America was virtually undamaged and could build cars and other appliances for the world with little competition. Times were so good that the richest people paid 90% of their income in taxes and still lived wonderful lifestyles. With that money, we were able to build roads, bridges, and better schools. Then a former actor became a corporate spokesman for several companies and led a revolt against the middle class. His name was Ronald Reagan. There's footage of him as the new president speaking to the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, and a man next to him whispers, "Speed it up." Michael Moore asks, who is this man who could tell a president to speed it up? His name was Donald Regan, the former CEO of Merrill Lynch, who was then Reagan's Secretary of the Treasury and later his Chief of Staff. He created Reaganomics and began the ball rolling that has steamrolled the middle class over the last 30 years, lowering taxes on the wealthy, first to 50% and now to about 35%, busting up the unions like the air traffic controllers, and outsourcing manufacturing jobs, leaving entire towns in virtual ruins. Now we have a country that's wealth is built not on things like great cars and good vacuums, but on pushing paper and squeezing the little guy. Who needs loan sharks when we have credit card companies that have interest rates of 18 to 39%? Mortgage companies that will give loans to families that will have the hardest time affording them. And come up with new ways to squeeze people, like offering reverse mortgages to older people who've already paid for their houses. Can't afford something? Use the equity on your home. It's like letting someone use a credit card at a casino. Oh, that's right, that's allowed too. One of the most shameful things Michael Moore discovers is that companies take out life insurance policies for their employees, not for the families, but for the company's bottom line. One bank made $1.5 million off the death of a very good employee without the man's knowledge or the permission of his family. The reason you're not allowed to take out fire insurance on your neighbor's house is because the only benefit to you would be if his house goes on fire. So what benefit would a company have for an employee who gets sick? They might want him to die. And there's a wonderful expression for this action. It's called dead peasants insurance. It's been a common practice to take out insurance of top executives because their work would be so hard to replace. But for lower level employees like janitors, it just seems ghoulish and immoral. One cashier from Walmart died at the age of 26 from cancer with 4 kids. Her husband has $100,000 in medical bills to pay and a $6,000 funeral. He had no insurance for his young wife. But Walmart did, collected $81,000 from her demise. Walmart didn't offer him 1 penny of the money and never asked her or the family for the permission to own this insurance. There are so many other scandalous affairs brought up in this film that the mainstream media allows to go on without passing judgment. Like the fact that so many Treasury members of Bush, Clinton's, and now Obama's White House are made up of alumni from Goldman Sachs, including Bush's Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson. When the financial world was going to hell last fall, it was Paulson who pushed for the $700 billion loan to the financial markets, much of it going to Goldman Sachs and its partner AIG. Congress first voted the bill down because they were flooded with messages from average Americans fighting against this bailout. But in a backroom deal, that would not have happened without the help of the Democrats. The bill got pushed through, spitting in the eye of the American people. One strong Ohio congresswoman named Marcy Kaptur agrees with Michael Moore when he called it a financial coup d'etat. The problem with modern journalism is that it bends so far to be fair and balanced that it forgets that it's supposed to tell the truth. Sometimes there are not two sides. There's a wrong side and a right side. And sometimes there's the sensible side and the crazy side. And too often, modern journalists give equal time to the crazies and the liars. Michael Moore tells truth to the powerful. Compared to the audience for Transformers, his crowds are infinitesimal. But the people who watch him know that he loves us and America, despite what the Bill O'Reillys of the world might try to feed you. His movies fill a very important void in national dialogue, but there's a threat that he might stop making them if people don't start to grab his baton and continue the race without him. I can't believe that the middle class is satisfied with the world they've been given. We remember how it was for our parents and how much less difficult it was for them to lead a good, comfortable life, often with one salary. If we don't do something to help take back our country, then we have nothing to cry and complain about. Voting in Barack Obama was a crucial first step, but as you can see, even he seems to be feeling like he's fighting this fight alone. The cause is great. One thing we could push for is the enactment of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's Second Bill of Rights. You can read these rights on my website, freddylovescwbb.blogspot.com. God bless America on this Columbus Day. From the Fredditor.